Hi, my name's Chris and I live in Australia. And currently in Australia, rental prices are at an all-time high. They're just skyrocketing. They're soaring right now, just year after year, going up, up, up. High as the sky goes for it. And unfortunately, wages aren't growing at the same rate as the rental increases are occurring, and social security payments for those down the bottom of the ladder right now, their payments aren't increasing anywhere close to the rate that rental payments are going up. And in today's video, we're going to have a look at a thing that real estate agencies do when you're applying for a rental. They apply a rule called the 30-70 rule, and we're going to have a look into this because I guess it's a reason why hundreds of thousands of Australians' rental applications are likely being overlooked and ignored. So real estate agents use something called the 30-70 rule. It's kind of like a benchmark rule. Essentially, they want the rent to be only 30% of the income of the people applying on the household. If it's more than 30% of their income coming through, they see it as, oh, maybe they can't really comfortably afford this place. Maybe it's a risk. So let's try find someone who meets that 30-70 rule. So 30% of the income that someone earns needs to be met to be the value or the rent for the house. And if it doesn't meet that rule, they'll just flick through the pile of applications and be like, does anyone here meet that rule? Until they find someone that meets that rule, and they're going to be put to the top of the pile for, of course, the owner to review. It's kind of a rough rule of the thumb that they do, and you know, it's not a law or anything like that, but it's a common practice that real estate agencies do because they want to find someone based off this rule that will just keep paying that rent like clockwork. They don't want any speed bumps or hiccups, so they follow the 30-70 rule. In today's video, we're going to have a look at people on Social Security, so on Centrelink, and we're going to see, based on their payments, what that 30-70 rule would look like, so they'd know how much they can afford, I guess, if they're applying for a property without the real estate agency just throwing their application in the bin. And we're also going to have a look at minimum wage. So on the minimum wage, how much is that 30-70 rule worth? That way you also know, is my application just being thrown in the bin or put to the bottom of the pile as they filter through, trying to find someone who meets that 30-70 rule better. So I'll just read through a couple of Centrelink incomes, and then we'll also have a look at the minimum wage as well. We'll be looking at singles and also couples. First one is a single person on the pension gets $1,149 per fortnight. Applying the 30-70 rule for real estate for what they can apply for, they can afford $172 per week on the 30-70 rule. Now, a couple combined on the pension, that's $1,732 per fortnight. I'm including the maximum rental allowance as well here, guys. So that's $212 per fortnight. That's the maximum Centrelink's going to give out towards housing. So a couple on the pension can afford $260 per week. Someone on job seeker, single with no children, it's about $1,000 per week with the maximum rental assistance. So they can afford $150 per week on the 30-70 rule. So a couple combined, both of them on job seeker with no children, they make $1,642 per fortnight. 30-70 rule says they can afford $246 per week rent. Shifting across to the minimum wage. So someone working 38 hours full-time per week on minimum wage after taxes are applied through, they're going to be looking at $1,598 per fortnight. 30-70 rule says they can afford $240 per week rent. Now, if you're a couple and both of you are working minimum wage jobs, 38 hours per week each, minimum wage, that's $3,196 per fortnight after taxes are applied, meaning that they can afford $480 per week rent. Now, that doesn't sound like very much at all, and that's because it's not. I had a look through all the capital cities. I was like, okay, so $260 per week, that's your pensioner combined together. That was the highest on the payment. And even the full-time worker on minimum wage, they could only afford $240. So they were even less than the pensioner combined. But at $260 per week, pretty much everyone receiving Centrelink benefits and everyone who's working full-time minimum wage, just by themselves though, not a couple, just by themselves, look through each capital city, and there's nothing. There's nothing on the market right now. You cannot get a unit, you cannot get a house, there is nothing. The only things that are popping up across. Essentially, it's for like room for rent, share housing and stuff. Like we have one room and we'll charge you $250 for a room. And then you're sharing with three, four other people, whatever it might be. But that's all I was seeing across the capital cities. But I did do a big zoom out across Australia, and there was 156 properties that were kind of meeting the criteria, but I started to click through them all, and most of them were a room for rent situation. But I did find a couple, and I did find this absolute stunning beauty out at Coober in the middle of South Australia. And if you are on Centrelink, or if you are on a pension, or you're working full-time solo, you can probably just scrape through on this absolute beauty 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home, middle of Coober. Your closest McDonald's is about a 5.5-hour drive away. How's that for a Macca's run? I checked it out. The closest McDonald's was down Port Augusta. It's 5.5 hours there. You get your Big Mac meal and you got a 5.5-hour drive back. You got to ask yourself, is that junk food really worth it? Now, for a couple, both of them working on the minimum wage, there's still some options. I had a look across a couple of the capital cities, and yeah, there's some units available, some very small houses in Brisbane, in Sydney. Surprisingly, Melbourne, out west of Melbourne, in Melton and Werribee, there is a lot of, I'd say, affordable rental homes, a lot of houses that you can rent out that a couple on the minimum wage could afford on the 30/70 rule. Unless, of course, you want to go out to Coober, then you're well above that 30/70 rule, and, you know, real estate agent's going to say, you beauty, look at these guys coming in, both on minimum wage, or they're clearing 30/70. Put them at the top of our pile. These are our top candidates for Coober. But yeah, as real estates are applying that 30/70 rule across, as, you know, common practice, a lot of people are left behind there. Everyone on Centrelink, or anyone working a full-time job, when you're sending your application through, if you're not a couple on a full-time job, just single on your full-time job, minimum wage, sending an application through, chances are it's gone to the bottom of the pile. Chances are it may even be just getting thrown out. You don't meet the rule, you don't meet the criteria, and, you know, so long. Thanks for the memories. So for those who are looking for a place right now, or have been kicked out by their landlords for whatever reason, you say, well, social housing, that's my path forward here. Well, there's a 220,000 application wait list for social housing currently in Australia. It's a long list, a long line. There's just not enough social housing. So private market saying 30/70 rule, you can't get in. Social housing saying, well, we've got a long wait list, over 200,000 applications waiting for housing right now. And this is leading to why we have 120,000 homeless people in Australia right now. And even at the lowest end of the rental market, if you do find something, you know, down in that 250 range, that 240 range, where you can just scrape in on the 30/70 rule, if you can just scrape in on it, well, guess what? There's going to be hundreds of applications coming through, and all it takes is one person who's a little bit better than that 30/70 to come through, and they're going to be put above you in that pile. And as a society, I like to think, you know, Australians, we have a fair bit of mateship, fair bit of compassion. We care about our fellow man. I like to think that the majority of us do think that way. And when we see the system set up the way it is right now, where so many people are falling off the bottom rung of the ladder, so many people are falling behind, and then there's these rules from real estate agencies that they don't even know about. They're not laws, they're just rules of the thumb that they follow, which they think they're doing the right thing. You think you're doing the right thing applying for a house, but, you know, you're just wasting your time. It's not realistic. We have a system set up right now where people on disabilities are being left behind, where pensioners are being left behind, where people who have fallen short on work are being left behind, where people working full-time in a minimum wage job, but they're working full-time. They're doing 38 hours a week right now. They're being left behind. The ladder is being pulled up higher and higher. Now, for say that couple on minimum wage, you think, I'm just getting through right now, but wage growth is not meeting the rate of growth that rentals are doing right now. Wage growth is not anywhere close to what's happening with the housing market to buy a house. So I'll pose this question through. So you've got a couple working on the minimum wage, okay? Say in 5 years' time, say if rent in 5 years' time is $200 a week more than it is right now. So it's a $40 increase per year. Then, you know, a lot of us have been seeing that, if not more, over the last few years. But a $40 a week increase, you know, over 5 years. So extra $200, 5 years down the track per week. Well, they're not going to meet that 30/70 rule anymore, are they? No, they're going to be knocked out of the market. So suddenly you have everyone on Social Security, your pensioners, everyone on welfare, people on disabilities, everyone on social security not meeting that 30/70 rule, and then suddenly you have everyone on minimum wage not meeting that 30/70 rule. There's about 5 million people on social security right now, and when we look across minimum wage, it's 20% of the workforce in Australia. It's 20%. We're talking over 1 million people suddenly will be struggling to just get into a rental. We're not talking about buying a house. We're talking about getting a roof over their head, renting it. So the point I'm trying to make here is if the housing Ponzi continues in Australia, if the prices keep going up, housing prices keep going up, unit prices keep going up, well, rent keeps getting dragged up with it, of course, as well. If that keeps happening, and the government, they want it to keep happening, that's their plan. They want housing prices to keep growing at all costs. The Ponzi must be constantly fueled to keep going up. But if that's the case, if capitalism for housing must continue, well, then we need to be able to cover and create a landing pad for everyone who starts to fall off that bottom rung of the ladder. We need social housing to cover for them. If you want housing to just continue exponentially up, so be it. Okay, speculate, make your millions on housing, so be it. But for each person that falls off, each person that can no longer reach even paying for a rental anymore, that's excluded on a 30/70 rule, or that just simply cannot afford it under any circumstances because of inflation, as it just keeps perpetually moving further and further ahead and wages just aren't keeping up. You need that soft landing pad for people to fall on. You need social housing, you need roofs over their heads, you need places for them to go. That's the government's job. Provide social housing, and then let everyone else who can get into the property market, let them speculate, let them put it through the roof. But as people drop out, as they say, no, I can't afford to play this game of Monopoly anymore. In fact, I never had a chance in Monopoly, and I'm sick of watching the rich just go around the board time after time after time again, buying more houses, buying more property, when you can't even get around the board once without wasting that, say, $200 past go. Suddenly that $200 is completely wiped out, if not going backwards each time you go around the board. For those that are falling off the game of Monopoly, getting knocked out of the game of Monopoly, they lose the game of Monopoly, well, as they're sitting around watching the rich, have their fun, they need somewhere to go. And Australia, it's a wealthy country. We have the money to do it. So a perfect example, $360 billion we're spending on nuclear submarines. Okay, we're getting, I think, 8 nuclear submarines. Some are brand new, the top tier class, I think 3 of them are, and then we're getting 5 second-handers, some Virginia class submarines from America. They don't talk about it too much. They're saying you get, 8 nuclear subs, but 3 of them are brand spankers, 5 of them, they're old models, they're not the best, but we're paying $360 billion for that. Now, if we bought only half the submarines, we only got 4 submarines, and we halved that $360 billion, well, we could build 300,000 social houses for not just the current generation of Australia, but the next generation and generation after. It's infrastructure. Infrastructure, and this is money, guys, that we've already said we're committed to spending. Instead of spending it on 8 nuclear submarines, you could house 1 million people in the country. What's more valuable? Half the amount of nuclear submarines, or 1 million people not facing homelessness or on the brink of homelessness or struggling with no future, no hope, can't live any dignity within a decent quality of life? What's more valuable to Australians? Or if you don't want to cut the nuclear sub, you think we must have that defence, and the echidna strategy that the Australians currently employ, where we kind of sit back on our country and we'll fire the missiles off, man, we'll be defensive. If we think we need the nuclear subs against the echidna strategy, well, another way we could free up 300,000 houses. I did a video on it the other week. Another way we could do it for social housing, to build it, free up the funds for it, is we just simply, for all the bureaucrats, all the politicians that are getting defined benefit pensions, we just cut that program. And it's 300,000 social houses covered in the budget already. It's not extra money, it's money that is already being accounted for, that we're saying we're committing to spending. So you just cut their $400,000 per year pensions that they're getting, even though they've quit their jobs. Cut it. And then suddenly, 300,000 homes built in Australia for social housing for people falling off that ladder, 1 million people homed. Not just current generation, next generation. And here's the thing, guys, as you get homed into social housing, it doesn't mean it's all over Red Rover. You can stay there, but you can start to save and maybe get ahead, maybe get your way onto the property ladder over time. But it just means you're not just being crucified being crucified by rental increases on the private market, being left out of the private market, not even able to get into the private market, facing homelessness. It means the safety net's there, okay? Australia is a wealthy country, okay? We are a wealthy country. We should have the social safety nets there as we pull up the ladder for the rich to get richer, or even the middle class to try and get up towards, you know, the upper middle class, if it's, you know, even possible these days. It looks like the middle class has been absolutely eroded and obliterated, but safety net, we need it, okay? And safety net is social housing. Safety net is roofs over heads. Mind you, we do have a government that's saying, well, we're building 1.2 million homes. Okay, that's their plan. 1.2 million homes, we're going to build it. Keep in mind, guys, that 1.2 million homes that the current Labor government that we have in Australia wants to build, they're committing to build, they're saying, yeah, we're building it. You know, that's the private market building it. Okay, they're only building 30,000 social homes currently. That's all they've got budgeted in for $10 billion over 5 years. The vast majority of that 1.2 million, that's the private market, okay? That's your first home buyers getting in. But when your first home buyer gets in and they buy their first home, they move into their owner occupied, well, all these people, you know, trying to get rentals and stuff like that, it doesn't apply. It's a moot point. It's a owner occupier shifting into that house. Okay, so that doesn't help the 5 million people on benefits and the million people on minimum wage, over 1 million people on minimum wage, does not help them, doesn't create more rentals on the market. So then you look at the investors, you say, well, the investors, they're building the rental properties, and they're the vast majority of the 1.2 million houses being built. But the issue with that is all these new rentals being built by investors, they follow that 30-70 rule. Not a single person on Social Security, not a single person working by themselves on minimum wage is going to be able to get into any of these properties. It's going to be people on much higher incomes that can afford it. That 30-70 rule is going to knock them all out. All these new houses being built, all these new units being built, 30-70 rule, real estate agents will be like, ugh, no, you can't earn that. No, you can't afford that. No, bottom of the pile. Who has the money to pay for this? And they'll filter through and they'll find, cool, got 3 candidates. Let's put them across to the owner and they can pick from there. So if the 1.2 million homes that Labor wants to build is not going to help, aside from that 30,000, if it's not going to help the rental market, if it's not going to help the people down the furthest, on the bottom rungs of society right now, income-wise, the lowest socioeconomic class, if it's not going to help them at all, well, the government's job is to build social housing, okay? And it's got to build it now. And it's not just 30,000. Guys, we have a wait list of 220,000 applications. Okay, we need 10 times the amount to cover the wait list and then plus start to get ahead again with social housing. It's too far behind. It's too well gone. But we have the funds, we have the money. We just need to make decisions to allocate it across to social housing, to decide that we don't want other Australians starving cold in the streets. We don't want other Australians dying in the streets. Like, what's it going to take? Is it going to take you going to a Coles and then out the front of a Coles there's a family starving and homeless? Is it going to take you walking over a dead body from someone who couldn't afford shelter before you're like, oh, hang on, we got a problem? The problem's here now, okay? And we need to start making steps and actions now. As the ladder goes up, people are falling behind, they're falling off the bottom rung of the ladder. They need somewhere to land, they need somewhere to go. And we need roofs for them to be under. So if you don't do social housing and we keep going down this path that we're going down, this path is just a one-way track. Well, we're going to see widespread poverty, widespread homelessness. We're going to see people dying in the streets. We're going to see children, women starving in the streets. We're going to see pensioners, our elderly, just stuck in the streets, nowhere to go, nothing to do. Where are they supposed to go? Nowhere. We're going to see old people dying because they've got no roofs over their heads. But who gives a fuck, right? As long as house prices keep going up, that's all that matters, right? That's Australia. Housing prices must keep going up. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a fuck about anyone else in this country? What happened? What happened to our compassion? What happened to us caring about our fellow man? What happened about us trying to help our mates out of the trenches, pulling them up out of the mud, giving those who need help a helping hand? We used to be a country that had values. Nah. It's all went wrong, okay? This government has fucked us. The last 30, 40 years, they've gone on this train track and they're systematically destroying this country. Rich get richer, ladders going up on the property, and now we're starting to see millions It'll be millions soon, hundreds of thousands currently, but soon it'll move into the millions who can't even afford a roof over their head. It needs to stop, it needs to change. But leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Is housing becoming the root of all evil in this country? Should the 30/70 rule, should that be abolished somehow? Even though it's not a law or anything like that, should that practice be frowned upon or removed from real estate agencies, especially in this housing crisis where more and more people just are simply never going to meet it? Should the government be doing more? Is the government doing enough for you right now? Are you struggling? Are you in the shoes where you're struggling to pay rent? Are you losing your job? Are you 2 weeks away from homelessness yourself? Where are you at? How are you feeling? Are you feeling the stress? Are we all just a few weeks away from poverty ourselves? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Does something need to change here? Is something wrong? Do you feel it? Do you feel something is wrong in this country? Do you think that we have lost our values, our morals, our mateship? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one.